Okay. All right. Very good.
All right. Good afternoon or good evening, everybody. Welcome to the APDVS webinar on how to deal with this faculty survey of the ACGME. It's that season of year where everyone's getting harassed and told to get 100% productivity and positivity on their ACGME surveys, and then you read the survey and the questions make no sense and they're confusing and everyone's answering them the wrong way, 10 ways till Sunday. So to take a little mystery out of this, we've invited several seasoned program directors to help figure this out. And we kind of decided to break it up into three sections. One section is, how do you prepare people for this survey? How do you prepare the trainees for it? Do you remind them about certain things? Do you make sure that you coordinate certain things through the year? And number two, we decided, how do you prepare the faculty for this? What do you guys do to discuss this? And then I think, do you remind people? Do you do things like that? So we're going to hear from people from different approaches. And then we're finally going to hear is, how do you break the news of the survey, or how do you break things that can come out of this ACGME survey? So I do want to thank Gabby Velasquez for putting this together or recommending it. Unfortunately, she's dealing with something in the operating room, which is part of our second live sometimes. I do want to always thank Mo Malik and Joanna Bronson for just always doing everything for us through all the societies, it seems like. But without further ado, I would like to hear from Dr. Shukler, and he's going to talk to us about how do we get these trainees to answer the questions honestly, but understand what the question's asking. So without further ado, Dr. Shukler, take it away.
Thank you, Dr. Capito. Thank you, Frank. So I'm Manal Shukla. I'm the associate program director here at University of Mississippi Medical Center, due to take over soon. And I want to just talk about how we would prepare our trainees. And oftentimes we approach the fellowship just as we would our partners. Sometimes it's just a friendly conversation about how to complete this task in a timely fashion. So the basics really are that it's an uninterrupted completion. You want to have an uninterrupted completion. Take your time, read everything carefully, and be constructive. And then consider that this is a sort of a team effort to improve our program. One of the point of read carefully highlights what Dr. Caputo mentioned earlier, because
Dr.
this can
Shukla,
be
we're
some.
not seeing your screen, I don't think. We're
Okay.
seeing just, we're not seeing
Your
the,
your screen is on.
oh,
So are we? Is the slide? Are the slides moving or no?
no.
Okay. How about now?
Yes.
Perfect. Okay, thank you. Sorry about that. So again, the basics of uninterrupted completion: take your time, read carefully, be constructive, and understand that this is teamwork. So with respect to no interruptions, I mean, this is a comprehensive survey. It's a multiple. It's not just a quick 10 survey that you're given. It's comprehensive survey with varying presentations of questions and answer choices. So I think it's really important that to understand that this survey comes out on February 10th. It's due by April 4th. That gives everybody ample time, almost 50 days to to complete it. So I would advise, so one of the first things I advise is, of course, taking your time, but really allotting a day where you're not post call or in between calls, where you have in between consults to finish this up because the deadline is coming up. And again, with the underlying foundation or fundamental understanding that this is to help. We're all proud of the program we train in. We're all proud of the program that we are a part of, and we want to help it grow. The survey has varying questions or statements, and I say that because some of the numbers will be a question with answer choices very negative to very positive, but then another would be a statement in a table format with yes or no check boxes. And so navigating all of that it can take some time. And so without interruptions, I think I find that it's helpful. So that brings me to my next point about reading everything carefully. Some of the questions discuss the program's commitments to your global education. So remembering that there's additional training that you get out that you receive outside of your everyday learning how to manage a complex thoracoabdominal aortic aneurysm, the diversity of surgery safety mechanisms, specifically radiation safety or even safety in the hospital, the health stream equivalent that we receive. And so all reminding yourself that those resources are available, and so therefore documenting those in the survey. Other questions discuss on professionalism, and so if you were to and exceeding your workload or work time, just remembering that yeah that this is a global approach to. I'm going to use sort of some similar words. This is a global approach to how your training program is. So it's tough to remember your last difficult call and then finish this survey. Just think about it over the last year or two that you've been there. Again, take your time. Pay really. The wording can vary. What if it can vary in the sense of it could be a positive point as this process is not involved in your program, agree, strongly disagree, etc. Or this process is lacking in your program. Again, same thing. So a positive or negative connotation question, and being careful to navigate through that. The list of answers, again, very negative to very positive, very satisfied to very dissatisfied, never to always, or always to never in the sequence of the answer choices. So the short answer of what I mean to say on this slide is avoid answering all A's or all E's or all C's to meet the deadline. Again, remembering that we have this is something we have to complete, and we want to uh, improve our program, which we're proud to be a part of. And then really being constructive. Remember that this is an anonymous survey, and that's the important part about this. Um, Specific instances or single events are rarely helpful. And so remembering that if there's a repeated issue, just like any quality improvement measure, if there's a repeated issue, that's when we would try to think about us incorporating it. This survey is meant to improve the program, identify resource needs, improve faculty performance. We as faculty have varying times that we are in our career. So some your division chief or your program director may be a better educator than the junior partner who's 3 months out of fellowship, and inundated with new pathology in a different region of the country. The program is committed to your education and making safe and successful vascular surgeons. That's sort of the key to remember. And the reason I'm able to say that is just because these programs go through such an important process and comprehensive process to get the accreditation that's the survey itself serves as a checks and balances system for that point. And then again, teamwork. The program director and the assistant or associate program director are your biggest resource for growth, I say here. And so again, this survey is meant for all of us to grow together. And just remembering that is sort of how I present this information to our fellows. We have an independent 2-year program. That's how I present it. How can we improve together? What's constructive criticism? I appreciate the opportunity to present this, and I'll take any questions now if there are any.
Dr. Shukla, that was great. Thank you. I think one of the things that people often forget to do is to remind people what they've done over the course of the year. Like a lot of those questions are direct to that. Have you had the opportunity to do, and I apologize, my computer has been shutting down, of course, on a mandatory maintenance basis, I guess. Of course, it's going to happen during the webinar. But, you know, the opportunities for scholarly activity, opportunities to have training in drug awareness, opportunities in good sleep habits, all these questions. And the sad part is you never know what questions are going to come about. So do you remind them a couple of weeks beforehand? Do you say, hey guys, don't forget we did have that DEI thing a month ago. Don't forget, we did do this a couple of times ago. Do you do something like that?
Yeah, man, again, the fine balance, to be frank, is to not to load it. Please give me good marks. Please good. No, it's more of I do. So yes, I do remind them, and I do try to have it in a conversation basis that, don't forget the ACGME survey, and think about the things that we've done. We incorporate the new things we've done is we've incorporated DEI lectures or
I'm
things
not
like that.
saying
And I'll
lie, but I have no problem reminding people, hey, listen,
oh
I mean, it actually it can go against you though a little bit. We did a whole thing about recognizing the impaired resident and fellow
yep,
and attending. And one of the questions was, can you recognize impairment in people, um, in residents, trainees, or faculty? And they're like, yeah, we were trained in that. I can recognize that. I was trained to recognize that. So we had to do some explaining with that.
I got you.
Um, but I'm not saying don't answer honesty. I love honesty for this survey, but I'm saying don't forget the stuff you put into your curriculum the whole year just to address some of this stuff and, bring it to light a little bit.
Absolutely. So yeah, your point absolutely is right, Frank. And it becomes a quite, I think when one of the things that I face, again, not in the vascular surgery, but general surgery realm, was remembering the quality improvement. There are
Mhm.
quality improvement metrics, M&M, the conferences in which we discuss how to the PDSA model or having the ACS quality improvement course. Remember, that is a quality improvement education you're receiving, even though it's not, you don't have a project that says, how do I reduce surgical site infection? That's an avenue. So that's an example of what I do. So to answer your original question, do I somehow remind them? Absolutely, because from February 10th to 11/4, we're looking at getting this completed, and with gentle reminders, it helps.
How about you, Dr. Cole Glazer and Dr. Doyle? Do you happen to do anything in particular to get your trainees and residents ready for this time of year?
Absolutely. Um, so every year, at least for the past 3 years, I've scheduled a meeting with both the trainees and faculty. And some of the slides that I have, I've drawn from the PowerPoint that I give because I think, Frank, you're absolutely right. I pull up screenshots from our intranet page, from our home page that shows this is the access to all of your well-being. This is where you go to MedHub to get to all of your surveys. You can review all of these surveys. We now label M&M as Patient Safety and Quality Conference because that's exactly what it is. And if you don't label it that, they'll say, well, we have M&M, but that's not the same as patient quality and safety, which is a direct question from the survey. So I feel like semantics are so huge with this survey that you do have to kind of spell out some stuff, or people are just trying to work through the survey as fast as possible to move on to their next thing, and they're going to miss it. And I think you have to do that equally with your faculty as you do with trainees, because faculty come to work, do the same thing every day, and aren't necessarily thinking about everything that's available to them and the trainees. And they might not be aware of what do they have for sleep deprivation training. What do we have? Like, we have rides home from the hospital if you are sleep deprived, and they might not even know that. So I think it's hugely important to go over this with your faculty
Oh, for
and
sure.
trainees. Yeah.
Well, I mean, what a better introduction than that, Dr. Cole Glazer. So we have Dr. Jill Cole Glazer, the program director from the Mayo Clinic, who's going to be talking to us about ACGME faculty survey. How do you get faculty ready for this? How do you prime them and stuff like that? We all have different ideas and different approaches, but I think I want to hear from Dr. Cole Glazer.
Sure. So exactly kind of what I said. I have a meeting and I give a talk. This is just a snippet of that talk. I don't know how.
Jill, one thing I do want to say one thing during the
Yeah,
webinar. If you guys are listening or anything, feel free to be interactive. Feel free to do anything in the chats. The chat's open. I'm apparently the one to monitor it, and I am monitoring it, Joanna. Don't you worry. But please, feel free to. The better interaction, the better this webinar will be.
so I do a similar type of presentation, exactly what I said before, to go over very specific things. I'm not trying to sway survey results because I'm not going to speak to more of the opinion things, but there are very factual questions that are, does your program have this, yes or no? And I feel like that is the stuff that I want to go over, especially for faculty that might not actually use the resources that the survey questions are asking about, and they might not have enough knowledge or information to go through everything that your institution, because a lot of these are institutionally driven, not just Division of Vascular Surgery, but the actual program that you're in, like the university that you're a part of. So maybe about 3 or 4 years ago, ACGME actually put out a slide deck and that I've stolen some of these slides from. They said, feel free to use this to go over with your faculty. And it's in a very nice, calming green bamboo type of slide deck. So I like to use that every year.
Well, it's to offset the time of year they put the survey out, the dark, dismal, short day, winter time. God forbid they put it out during summertime or something. They have to put it out during the winter. But
So, I do think it is very important to keep in your minds that because there is a long time to do this survey. For this year, it's from February 10th to April 4th. And the ACGME requires 70% of your faculty to complete the survey. My actual institution requires 100%. So we get dinged and have a lot of write-ups that we need to do if we're less than that. But for ACGME, you need at least 70%. If you do not meet that cutoff, they will flag you for review committee, which is exactly what you want to try to avoid every year with the survey. Should you talk to your faculty about this? 100%. You should absolutely sit down with your faculty and make sure they're aware of the survey, what it entails, and make sure they know the importance of this survey, especially if they're new to the institution or new faculty in general. You need their compliance and you need their accurate answers. So inform your faculty that they're going to receive an email, and it's going to come out of ads. It'll be ads@acgme.org. Some people clicking through their email, and we all get a ton of emails every day. So I would start with, before the survey even comes out, saying, look for this email. Don't just put it in your trash. And if you don't get it by, say, if nobody has gotten it by this time frame, ask them to go through their junk mail folder. Make sure everybody knows about the April 4th due date. And again, be on top of your faculty. Set reminders throughout this time period because you need their compliance. So who participates? For faculty members who have been listed as core faculty on your faculty roster in ads. So know that you have a bit of control over this depending on the size of your program. So my program is big enough that I can pick and choose the core faculty, especially for anybody that's doing an away rotations.
that's a very important point. Not everyone on your faculty has to be core faculty.
Yeah, unless you're too small of a program where you really only have like 4 people or 4 responders.
Sure, correct.
Yeah.
But if you are up to this, you don't have to put every community person that they rotate through. You don't have to put through people that do not have a academic interest in the trainees, because those are the people that are generally the hardest people to get responses from. So I think
yes,
be smart about your core faculty.
Exactly. I got dinged on this last year because we had an away rotation person who didn't have to be core faculty at this away rotation, and they were literally on their way out to retire, and they never filled out the survey. So you, exactly like Frank said, be smart about this because you kind of have some control over who's going to take this and who's not. Another big thing to remember is, one, you as the PD don't get this. You're not going to do this survey, so you don't get to see the questions. And ACGME does not send reminder emails to complete the survey. So right now, if they've sent out the initial survey email and you want to send reminder emails, you have to go into the ACGME website yourself, into ads, and you can set those up. So this is your responsibility as a program. Perhaps your EPC knows how to do this, or an EPC somewhere in your institution does, to set up reminder emails. And I do think it's nice to do this through ads because sometimes it can look more threatening if it comes from an ACGME email address as opposed to you as PD. And I've listed, access the list of faculty members who haven't completed the survey, so you can see who has not done it yet. That's through ads. You go to the surveys tab, hit faculty headings, and then there's a view reminder of the takers that you can do to help get this done and send out that email. I would also highly recommend to just go to the ACGME website, and there's a whole section on trainee and faculty ACGME surveys. And it's good to go to this and get an idea, well, what the heck are they even asking? There's a very long, detailed outline. This is some of it on the screen here, but it lets you know kind of what general questions they're going to be asking about and things that you may want to include when you talk to your trainees and faculty. So big things like what is the supervision like? They're always going to ask about the 80-hour work week. What's the educational content like? Do you have anything for DEI? What resources are available both to faculty, whether it's faculty development, or also is the faculty aware of the resources available to the trainees? And professionalism is a huge one. This is pulled directly from the ACGME slide deck that came out a few years ago. They actually admit that sometimes and moderately can be seen as non-compliant. And so this was huge for me to introduce to my trainees and faculty, because you kind of hear that you should really say always or never, but I always thought that was fictitious, or that's just people really trying to get 100% on this survey or something. But no, the ACGME actually admits that sometimes and moderately can be considered a red flag. They also admit that the 5-point scale can flip in between questions. So you can't just go down every single question and say always, 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 because one question, they might actually reverse the order of it. And I've seen programs get hung up on that, or actually end up with 100% noncompliance to one question, because that was the one question where they flipped the order of always versus never. So you actually need time to sit down and make sure you go through the survey with a fine-tooth comb. So it's a good time to review your program's policies and resources with your faculty. This is where I bring up that M&M is patient safety adverse events and root cause analysis. And then I remind them, you participate in this twice a month. You're doing this. Answer it correctly on the ACGME survey. And so then I just renamed M&M, because I'm like, this is pointless. The only way to get through is to reiterate all the time that this is actually what we're doing. I go through and I develop a PowerPoint that pulls up our policies so that the faculty knows, okay, this is actually our fatigue and sleep deprivation policy. This is where you go in MedHub to see all of your faculty reviews and how you get to fill out evaluations on all of the trainees. This is where we have all of our well-being resources so that they know it's there, so on and so forth. This is what we do for healthcare disparities. So I feel it is important to go over that and to show evidence of this is actually what we have available. And then I discuss common ACGME survey issues. So things that seem to be hot topics every year on the ACGME for various programs. Feedback is always a big one. I mean, why have we started to go down that pathway of developing APAs? It's because lots of programs get dinged about feedback. Trainees want feedback. Well, faculty do too. So I think talking about this ahead of the ACGME survey is important. Professionalism. How are there ways that trainees and faculty can anonymously bring up, or in a safe environment, bring up what their concerns are with professionalism?
So Joe, I want to just say a couple of things
Yeah.
that I think are helpful at this point, because you mentioned professionalism, right? So one of the things I did, that was a big thing for us. How do you do that, right? So we actually set up an ombudsman program. So I have a faculty ombudsman and a resident ombudsman, that if the residents are uncomfortable going to a faculty, they can go to a resident, and who comes as a middle person, and that kind of helps that out. And the other thing is feedback. I meet with every one of my core faculty and give them an APR of education, just so they know that they can answer that question. It takes 5 minutes, 10 minutes. Here's your evaluations. Here's your average score. Here's your comments. Congratulations. Majority of the times they're really happy meetings, and people just like to hear how good they're doing. So those are some things, everyone likes everyone likes a attaboy once in a while, or, so I'm a words of adoration, language of love guy. So I get it. So, but those are things that you can help you. And I agree, because like you look at research, one of the questions is there an opportunity for scholarly something to that effect, right?
Yes.
We have a monthly research meeting. We have a monthly biostatistics course that people can take if they want to. I'm amazed at how we are not 100% on that sometimes. I'm not saying you have to be the scholar, but you do have opportunity for it.
But right, because the question is opportunity.
Yes.
Yes, absolutely. And that's an important thing to bring up. It's not, do you do it? It's, is it available? And a lot of the questions read that way. Same thing with faculty development. Make sure they know what's available to them for faculty development. And another big thing has been efforts to recruit a diverse faculty or trainees. Well, if you're actively doing ways to recruit diversity, when you guys are the ones in charge of recruitment for trainees, what do you do when you review applications? Divulge that information to the rest of your faculty. Be transparent about how you are actively trying to recruit more diverse trainees. How are you reaching out to them? Sometimes all this needs is more communication between you as the PD and the faculty that are helping evaluate and teach your trainees. So a couple of things real quick and I'll be done, but I try to emphasize that we have multiple ways to bring concerns to the table, and that it's much better to raise concerns prior to the ACGME survey. The ACGME survey should not be the platform to have arguments between faculty members. Because there are real consequences to what happens on the ACGME survey. And I'm not trying to say don't be honest. And if there are legitimate concerns that have been brought up and just are not being addressed, it's a great way to address them. But this is not the time for petty arguments or things that could be dealt with outside of a accreditation platform. Because if citations, site visits, and probations can really affect the entirety, the trainees and all of the faculty members in a negative way. So don't make this, your only form of ways to get feedback.
Joe, I mean, I agree. I think people do not like having tough conversations. I don't think people like having difficult conversations, I think a lot of these things, like you mentioned, like, oh, I'll show them on the survey, ha 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 ha, and all of a sudden you got 3 citations going on, and it could have just been a simple, talk and like, hey guys, let's bring this up. There's tension here, there's this here, there's things here, and that's a really good point. Don't let the survey be your battleground.
And sometimes I feel like that tension can actually be worse amongst faculty than it is actually coming from the trainees.
Oh,
So, and then again, that's not meant to be a threat, but make sure that the faculty is on board and is as a cohesive group and understanding, what's the main goal for the faculty, what's the main goal for the program, and what's best overall for the trainees, and to keep that kind of a mindset when you're taking the survey. So with that, thank you, and I'll take any questions.
Jill, I think that was fantastic and a really great way to kind of get in front of it. One of the things that we do is regular faculty meetings. So every Tuesday morning, we have a Zoom conference call where all the faculty are able to get on. And Mike always gives me opportunity to talk about program related issues. And so that way we can stay on top of things and not let issues fester. So if there's a specific problem that's come up, so it's more of a continuous discussion so that way, we're not caught off guard. And then similar to you, I try to present to the faculty and to the trainees prior to the rollout of the surveys to kind of prep the battlefield a little bit. And I also don't release the survey when I get the notification to release the survey. So for example, the in-service was this past weekend.
Right.
I usually don't release the survey and I'm going to meet with them this Thursday to talk about a variety of things. And we have like PhD psychologists that I have meet with the trainees. So it's like an impartial third party where they can like vent and get feedback, not directly to me. So there's lots of these strategies that we can implement to try to stay ahead of it and with the faculty and the trainees. But we've taken kind of a continuous conversation approach to try to identify issues early on and then mitigate them as quickly as possible. So that way there's not grudges being held when we go into the survey period. The last thing that we've done is we do a PEC Lite mid-year to kind of check in on our major changes that we submitted in web ads as kind of like, is it working? Is it not working? So that way we can get feedback and start to change direction mid-year if need be, as opposed to waiting until May or June and then having dirty laundry get aired on the survey, which is never great. But I'm going to share my experience with that. But yeah, a great
So
job.
yeah,
Awesome, awesome example.
that's a great lead in. So we kind of discussed how do you prepare people for this survey, and Dr. Doyle is going to talk about, well, how do you give feedback about the survey, but more importantly, what can be the consequences of these surveys and how do you deal with them? I mean, because that could be a big problem. Like Jill alluded to, Dr. Colgager alluded to, these surveys can lead to big problems. So you got to take them seriously, and your faculty and trainees do. So Dr. Doyle from the University of Rochester, just a little bit further away. I think you guys get more snow than us, probably. Two Rochesters in the house and in Cleveland, two clinics and two Rochesters. There you go. So Dr. Doyle, without further ado, go ahead.
Sure. Could you guys see my slides okay?
Yes.
All right, great. So I'm going to start by kind of outlining the process we take to share our survey results. And so, the program directors, we get the results before anyone else does. The division chiefs don't get them. Your program coordinator does. Your DIO also does get it. So upon release of the survey, I will always share with my division chief. I usually can forward a PDF of both the faculty and the trainees' reports. And then we'll usually meet and discuss and review and compare to prior years, just to kind of get a sense of how things are going. Then at our faculty meeting, we will share the faculty and resident surveys, just to kind of be open about it, get some feedback about things if there are specific issues. And then a process that we've kind of evolved over the years is that we'll go directly to our chief residents who have kind of the most experience with, recently going through training, and oftentimes we'll have an understanding of some of the junior residents and mid-level residents, because we have a residency program, the various issues. And we have, for the past couple of years, done an internal anonymous survey. And it's kind of two main purposes. One is to follow up on the any sort of negative or trends that we see in the data in the ACGME survey. And the second is to basically test for the effectiveness of the major changes we've made on web ads, so that way we can get feedback at, is it working? Is it not working? Is it meeting expectations? Do we want more or less of a specific thing in a curriculum? We still have an independent curriculum, as I think Frank also does at Cleveland. And then after we have that, the residents are pretty in tune with this process at this point. It's a survey that we administer through SurveyMonkey. We then share the results with the trainees. We review our internal survey. And then at that point in time, we kind of say, okay, our web ads for this past year, we did these things, and then we're going to continue, we're going to stop, we're going to modify, we're going to add these various changes. And so that's kind of our general process that we try to repeat when we're sharing. We do not have to share with our GMAC unless there's a citation. So as you'll see, I've had a citation since I inherited the program, and I've been trying really hard to get rid of it. For that, we presented our department, we presented our GMAC, and so it's one of these things that when you get a citation, it has led us to significant quality improvement in our program. And interestingly, our internal audit has shown that it's probably based somewhat in not understanding how to answer the question, which is kind of what Jill went over, because there's two specific questions on the survey where the middle answer is likely the correct answer, the most compliant answer. And our trainees are gun shy about answering the middle answer. So that's one of the things that we have to be aware of. So I always start by reviewing where we're coming from. So I inherited a citation when I came in as a program director, and I kind of outline in a format of the continued noncompliance. And so this is 3 consecutive years. It's horrible. And we're a really good training program, but we've got dinged in these two areas: appropriate level of supervision and appropriate amount of teaching in all clinical and didactic activities. And as you can see here, this is an excerpt of this, and we're 100% compliant in all of these metrics, but in these two questions, appropriate level of supervision, appropriate amount of teaching, the middle answer is the correct amount. And I've actually had, or appropriate amount, or the right balance. And above and below those things, it's either not quite enough, a little too much, all the way to too much and way not enough. And so the trainees have struggled with how to answer this, and I try not to coach them and say, like you say, answer and honestly. But regardless, we've still had a citation in this area. So I then go over general other trends and program quality. And so this is kind of like the bottom of the survey that kind of goes through trends, which kind of is a nice way to show.
I do want to say,
Yep.
Adam, I want to bring up now that you mentioned trends, that's very important. Their trends are very important, and our office pays a lot of attention to them. And I think so does the ACGME, and that's you got to watch those trends.
Yep. So again, this is looking at like overall program quality, and there's this report for both the residents and the faculty, where your program is in blue and the national mean is in yellow, as kind of the overall opinion of the program. And there's the same thing with the faculty. And then they give you your results over the prior 3 years that you can use to kind of reference as to areas where potentially you're a little low or below or above, or like, for example, you can see on patient safety and teaming, we made a big improvement in 1 year and then we dropped off 22 to 23. So it's a way for us to kind of address certain things. The clinical experience and volume you can see in my program, we made some improvement and then we're dropping off. But overall, at the bottom, the program percentage at a glance, the very compliant versus the non-compliant, this is a way that you can kind of show general trends and program quality. And so this is just an example of some of the internal survey questions that we use to kind of drill into these areas of concern, and whether it be in supervision, and you can see we kind of broke out in the operating room versus out of the operating room. Types of instruction, whether it's teaching at the bedside in the OR or a classroom. And these are kind of helpful in terms of trying to facilitate conversations. So for example, what we found, and what one of the things I've had to work on with both the faculty and the trainees, is our supervision policy and understanding of what general supervision is and what entrustment is, and these things, where the junior residents who are primarily interacting with the senior residents don't feel like they're being supervised, even though they are constantly supervised, and there's a faculty always available and generally always in the hospital. So there's really no unsupervised activity, but there's a perception by some of the junior and mid-level residents that they're not being supervised, even though they are. So that's an opportunity for re-education on that. And in terms of teaching, just kind of focusing that the teaching, the education in all environments is omnipresent. It's something that we are continually doing, whether it be on the telephone, at the bedside, on the computer, in the clinic, whatever the case may be. And then just examples of kind of how we're able to drill into these things. And I won't belabor this. And then, in terms of uh, specifics that we're trying to drill into. And then this is just an example of the web ads where we've actually, it's, you can see it's kind of an extensive set of changes that we iterate over time. And then I do actually include the results of the internal survey in our major changes section to kind of give a rationale for why we're making certain changes and to kind of show and be very transparent with the ACGME and the RRC exactly what we're doing to try to fix the problem. And so I have quite a kind of a lengthy set of major changes that we've been working on over the past couple of years to get this to go away. But our internal process, our DIO thinks that this is kind of like a good way to go about it. I've kind of applied principles of quality improvement with how we kind of run the survey and time it and do things like that. I'm hoping my 2 citations will go away. A lot of hard work in terms of getting that to go, but that's kind of how I've been communicating the results of the faculty in the resident survey, and it seems to have been very effective.
Well, first of all, Adam, thanks for being honest with us, right? So it's not always easy to screen your dad did a good job. I see your daughter. I think I'm hoping that's your daughter next time. But
Yeah, it's Eleanor. She's
I
8.
know. Your
Future
dad did a good job
bachelor.
presenting. So but I really want to thank. I mean, and I think what you're doing is smart because the way you're scheduling, and I'm thinking it's strategic. You're doing things throughout the year to kind of have these checks points, kind of saying like, let's not just wait till next spring or next to when the or our PEC, let's have these mini PECs. Let's have these little things and checks and balances to see how the program is. Do you do the same thing, Jill? Do you do like these little like feelers out there during the year?
Yes, absolutely. I think it's a smart way to go. And Adam, very nice talk. I think one of the biggest ways that I've learned, like one of the best ways of learning for me as a PD has been I attend these overall PD meetings for surgery. So, everybody from ophthalmology, anesthesia, everybody comes. They show everybody's results from the ACGME survey, and people go through, this is how I'm answering these citations. This is how we're working through what's been brought up as problems. And so things that I've learned to do are I have quarterly meetings with my trainees where me and an APD sit down with all the trainees and we just say, this is an open forum. What are your issues? And if they don't start talking, then I'm going to bring up kind of the issues that I see on a day-to-day basis or I've caught wind of and start prodding like, come on, let's talk about it. And it also is a nice time because you as the PD aren't necessarily the person that's going to solve all the problems, right? One of the best ways to get these problems solved and to get some buy-in is to get the trainees to tell you how to fix it because they're the ones that are experiencing it. And so sometimes they have the best, insight into this is what we should do to fix it. And I think that's super helpful too. So I've also done assigned, like Frank, just like you said, signed a specific person that's a trainee, where if they don't feel comfortable coming to me with their problems, then we've set them up where we buy them breakfast, have them sit down with their trainee, have a separate one for the fellow group and a separate one for the residency group, and they can talk to them. And then that person is entrusted to tell, administration or me or the APDs. Whenever we've come up with ACGME survey results that are not awesome, I just reach out to the trainees and say, is there a particular person that you guys would feel more comfortable talking to than me? Name a faculty member. I don't take offense to anything. My job is to administratively help the program and make sure that we maintain accreditation while giving you a safe learning environment. Whatever you need, that is what I'm here for. And so I think hearing about the ways other programs set this up has significantly influenced how I do things. because there's no one right way to do it. And I think everybody has issues. There's no one program that is going to come up 100% all the time. So I like these forums where I get to hear, okay, that's how somebody else does it. That's a great idea.
Yeah, I like I would want to echo the same point, Jill. Sort of when you pull the trainees aside and give them an opportunity to discuss, but then if they're uncomfortable to speak up or don't say much, or as in that can be interpreted not only as sort of fear or discomfort, but rather just where to begin. Then broaching the subject, hey, listen, I've heard there's some issues here, or maybe it's some dissatisfaction here. Tell me more about that. What can we do to help? And then I also like the option of who's better. Dr. Doyle was saying he inherited this program. Maybe your predecessor is a little more, you're more comfortable with the predecessor than me or Dr. Doyle or you. So great points, Jill.
Yeah, all excellent points. And do you guys have ombudsmans at your institutions that the residents know about? Yeah, we do as well. And I think it's important just to kind of reiterate those kind of all of the things that exist. And Jill, I think your example of that kind of holistic overview of all the things the program does is a really good way to kind of demonstrate the compliance component with all the ACGME requirements. We also have an embedded PhD psychologist who, when I feel like the residents are being aloof or they don't want to talk to us, we can arrange like a third party meeting where they meet and we're not present and it's just residents and Lauren, and they know that it's confidential, and then she'll de-identify all the feedback, and it's a nice way for us to get kind of unfettered, and sometimes it's venting, which is good, and there's a catharsis to being able to have them vent as well. So that way they can get it out of their system, and then I can get the feedback and I can come back to them and say, I heard you, I hear you, and these are the things that I'm doing. Because a lot of times they want to just be acknowledged that they're being heard, and that we're advocating for change, and that where it's going to happen, it's just not going to happen tomorrow, because we can't always make 5 extra residents appear to fix a workload issue.
Yeah, I mean, that's my favorite is like, oh, we're losing APPs. Can we get the residents to do that? I'm like, well, you guys are going against the whole service education thing. I think we have anything from the audience. Does anyone out there have any questions or participants? This will be recorded and you'll be able to hear it. I also think that if it's okay with Dr. Shuckler, Dr. Doyle, Dr. Coolidge, if we can share the slides. We also, if I'm not mistaken, we have the slides from the last APDVS on faculty as well as resident surveys. I'm always fascinated. I don't know about you guys, for those of us that have the residency and the fellowship, it's the same survey and you can get 2 different results. That's always fascinating. But I think
we only have a fellowship, Frank, but to your point, yes, happy to share my slides. This was a question in the chat, and I'm happy to do that.
Well, if there's nothing else, I do want to thank Dr. Coolidge, Dr. Shuckler, Dr. Doyle for taking their time for this webinar. I want to take a little plug for the issues of the month, things that we're all pretty proud of on APDVS for the issues committee. Please, that feature's only as good as people respond to it. So as we present an issue, please don't hesitate to respond to that. I want to thank Dr. Sheen for showing up at the last second to say hello. I appreciate that. It always brings a smile to my face when I see his name. But I really do appreciate all of this. And again, Mo and Joanna, thank you for everything. So
really appreciate the opportunity. Have a good evening, everyone.
Yes, a great seminar, and thanks for the participation. Let me share.